And welcome to Crush Your Convo, where we're crushing the conversation one episode at a time. I am here with a Star Trek legend, Oscar-winning visual effects artist, designer, sculptor, illustrator, and makeup artist, the amazing Doug Drexler. Hi, Doug.
Hey there. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you.
I love Gates McFadden. To me, she was the most elegant woman that I saw on the Enterprise. She had an elegance about her, that was unique to her. And I was really disappointed when, what was it? She replaced in second season?
Correct.
I was disappointed. I liked her, and I didn't know what was going on. And they brought in
Diane Muldaur,
who we were all kind of excited at first because she was in the original series, and they made a big mistake there, but they tried to recreate the Spock McCoy dynamic, which means McCoy needles Spock, and Spock comes back and handily takes care of him, and they really like each other. But the thing is that we know Spock can take care of himself. Data's an innocent. He's like a little baby in some ways. And if you're kicking a little baby, it just doesn't work, So
agree.
That's why that failed. I was so glad to have her come back. And look at Picard season 3, how amazing she was in that. Wow, she finally got to kick some ass.
Finally, right? We were so excited. Her intro to season 3, the fans were just so stoked to see that.
Plus, I knew that, she had choreographed for the Muppets and I was really lucky because I worked for 3 years on stage on Next Generation as a makeup artist. So I lived with the actors, and that no one's closer to the actors than the makeup artists. I mean, you see them before the sun comes up and well after midnight, and everyone's, you're all going through something together. It's not easy to make a TV show. It's sometimes the hours are, especially if you're a makeup artist, you're there way before everybody, and you're there way after everybody, and you turn off the lights, basically.
I'm for sure Michael Dorn was very close to the makeup artist for a long time.
Well, Jerry Quist did Dorn's makeup almost the whole time. And Jerry, we had a lot of fun, I mean, I was there during a really great time. Gene Roddenberry was still alive when I got there. And I'll never forget, I was on stage. It was very early in my being there. And the second AD comes up and says, "Are you Doug Drexler?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she says, "Mr. Roddenberry would like to speak to you." And I was like,
it's like either principal office or, yeah.
And I follow her onto the Enterprise D bridge. And Gene is sitting at the back of the bridge in a tall director's chair. And he breaks into a broad smile. And he just wanted to tell me what a great job we did on Dick Tracy doing the makeup. Nice. Holy cow. Producers usually, they don't want to compliment you. They don't want you to get a big idea about yourself. It's just expected that you did a good job. I'm not going to congratulate you for it. You were supposed to do a good job. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I totally get that.
Really touched that, and then I had other instances with Gene, but to me, it's Gene's voice is what really makes Star Trek special. I think it was maintained pretty well, through the Berman years, which to me are still the Roddenberry years because they started with Gene. Berman did a good job. He took a lot of crap while the shows were on the air. But if you look now, you see that he respected, you know, Mike continued to write notes on technology and they were welcome. And, it was a unique time in Star Trek because everybody who worked on the show was on the Paramount backlot, pretty much. 95% of us were within walking distance of each other. So I could drop into wardrobe or go to the writer's building, or the writers will stop in. And, it was just a fun environment, and now everything's kind of spread out. The seasons are so short that, and it may be years before they come back, if they come back at all. So it's like we were working at a time where we were doing like 26 episodes a year. 26 a year.
And we only waited 3 months for the next season.
Yeah.
I remember those long summers.
Those are great. I'm sorry, we probably will never see that again. But and the characters can really develop powerfully, I mean, a lot of the shows don't even, TNG didn't really hit its stride till season 3. Season 3, the show just went.
Yeah.
And so we finished up on Dick Tracy, and I literally begged Mike Westmore to let me come and work on the show for him, doing makeup. And he was like, "But you're doing features, and we got nominated for an Oscar, And I'm like, "No, Mike, you don't understand. This is where I need to be. This has always been what it's about, right here. I need to be here." And so he just laughed. And I worked on the show for 3 years doing makeup, but then I got to know Mike Okuda, and we hit it off. If we were in school, we would have been friends in school.
Right.
It just was a great, immediately, including Denise Hooker. They're both like two of my best friends in the whole universe. But once I got to know Mike, is there any way for a guy like me to see? That's the thing. If you're on a TV show where everyone's together for like a couple of decades, you can slide sideways into another department. They're happy to have you if they've got room, because they've known you, you're proven.
Yeah.
They've seen you did a good job over here. They're kind of flattered that you want to come over and work with them. And so I really took advantage of that. I went from makeup to graphics to visual effects to conceptual artist, and it was welcome, which is really fantastic. My dream place to be. I was a big Next Gen fan before I got there. I wasn't there for the first 2 seasons. So there were some good episodes in the first 2 seasons. There's some clunkers too, but they were like finding their legs,
Right.
That's why when you only have 10 episodes a season, it's really hard.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Academy just ended, and I was all like, as much as they did their best with character development, it's hard to do that with only 10 episodes and not having those little, and they'll try and do fillers, but it just feels like out of place.
Yeah.
Luckily, the episodes were a little bit longer than normal, but still, it was like there was still things missing. Like some characters were missing at the end of the season that I was like disappointed about. But they do the best that they could with what they have.
The only show that I've seen that had like 10 to 13 episodes and seemed to not suffer from it was Battlestar Galactica, the Ron Moore Battlestar. That show just was fully formed when it happened. It was like it hit the ground running. It was really remarkable. You've seen it, right?
I have not yet.
I can tell by your face.
You know what? I'm getting there because, like, I'm still working on Star Trek, obviously, but Battlestar is on the list.
I'll pay you $50 if you watch the mini series that leads into the series. Watch the mini series. It's probably more connected to Star Trek than it is to Battlestar Galactica in the types of storytelling, the characters. And of course, Ron Moore and some of the other writers from Next Generation and Deep Space Nine were on the show. And then in visual effects, I was there, Gary was there. There were Star Trek people who brought that. Well, Ron brought the sensibility. It's an amazing show, absolutely amazing. And those actors, and don't get me wrong, I love, our Star Trek actors too. But they really did something amazing. When I got to go and do visual effects on that, see, I was on Enterprise, and Gary Hutzel, who used to be a visual effects supervisor on Next Gen and Deep Space Nine, we were great friends, and he knew I was fooling around with CG, and he was trying to get me to leave the show to come work on Galactica right away, and I couldn't do it. I'm like, Gary, this show could go 7 years. Galactica may only go for, a miniseries. But then we knew we were in trouble on Enterprise. You're in trouble when somebody comes in that you never saw before with a tape measure and starts measuring the room. You're like, uh-oh.
That's not good. That's not a good sign at all.
Yeah,
Oh,
then we found
no.
out that we were canceled on the internet. They didn't tell us.
I
And
heard
I
that.
was driving home thinking, man, I worked for so long, I'll probably never work again. And when I got home, Dorothy answers the door and she says, Gary Hudson left a message. And Gary heard and called immediately to ask
He's
me
like,
to come.
all right,
Yeah. And I was
come
like,
on over.
he's going to ask me to come. And I've been watching it. I became quite the fan while I was on Enterprise. And I have to admit that while I was on Star Trek, I didn't want to see anybody else's space show. It's like, that's what we do,
So is it safe to say you're not a Star Wars fan?
No, not really. I'm really not. I
That's okay.
love the first and second movie, but for me, there just wasn't enough there. It's just, I love that Star Trek was introspective and asked questions about who are we. I like that stuff. That to me, that really appeals to me. Plus, it connected to it. It presented itself as our future,
Right.
And the idea that we're going to grow into maturity and survive and be what we should be.
I mean, the one thing about Star Wars is that's why it was so good as movies, because it was a space opera, right? It's telling a story about fictional things like the Force and Jedis and things. While Star Trek was a TV show, and like you said, it represented what we could be in the future.
It had aspiration, not just entertainment.
Aspiration. Exactly. Now, I'm curious though, I know you said you're from New York. Okay, so I kind of wanted to go back to when you were younger, and I wanted to know, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you want to be an artist, or was there something else that you?
Oh no, sure. I wanted to be an artist. I mean, I started like every little kid with comic books, and I was getting, when I was like 4 years old, I had like Superman and Batman and stuff like that. And then even at about the age of 5, I realized that these characters were silly. I knew that at 5 years old, it was when I started getting into, Stan Lee was just coming into his own at Marvel in the early 60s. And he and Jack Kirby were doing something that no one else had done before. Back then, it was superheroes with problems. That's how the media, if they did an article on it, they say superheroes with problems. They were superheroes that were more human. They had money problems. The landlord was going to evict them. You never saw that with Batman. Batman was never being evicted. So it was unique. Plus, Stan told a great story. Jack Kirby, the artist, was a great idea guy and can lay out a story. With Stan, he and Stan spoke for 15 or 20 minutes, and Jack would go lay the story out, and Stan would come back and write all the dialogue. And it was an amazing way to do it. And so I got hooked on that stuff, and I was a huge Jack Kirby fan. Steve Ditko, Don Heck turned out to live in my neighborhood. I used to go to his house, and he would give me drawing lessons.
Wow.
That's what I wanted to do. I'm glad it didn't work out, because being a comic book artist, there's no way to make a living unless you're somehow lucky to just hit it. And some people do, but it's probably about as likely as when you go to Las Vegas and pull that handle on the slot machine, But if you're crazy enough, you want to try it no matter what,
Yeah, for sure. Now, digging into your work, and I was looking at all the stuff that you've done, and I had noticed that you had done Dick Tracy, and you had won the Academy Award for that. And I loved Dick Tracy as a kid, so I was super excited about this. But tell me about your time working on the project. Any fun stories? Anything that and also winning an Oscar. That's a huge honor.
Dick Tracy changed my life. Um, we were not the top tier makeup artists. We weren't even in Hollywood. We were in Brooklyn. We were part of the Dick Smith group of makeup artists. Now, Dick Smith, I think, still is like one of the greatest character makeup artists of all time. He did Linda Blair and The Exorcist and Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman, 120-year-old Jack Crabb, and Hal Holbrook as Mark Twain. Amazing makeups. When I got interested in makeup, I realized that he was, and I ended up working with him. It turned out he was in New York. That's how I ended up getting into the business. Dick had been feeding us jobs, and we were doing pretty well. Me and my partner, John Caglione, was a guy I met through Dick Smith, who worked makeup on like Saturday Night Live when it was the original Not Ready for Primetime players like John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and stuff like that. We were doing fine, but like I said, we weren't top. We weren't Rick Baker. We weren't Greg Canham. We weren't Rob Bottin. We weren't Stan Winston. And over the years, John and I had worked on films with a couple of people who went on to be important to Warren Beatty. John Landau, who was a producer on FX and Manhunter and a bunch of little crime films that we had done. And we had a similar sense of humor, so we enjoyed seeing each other. And then there was, John was a lead makeup guy on Cotton Club. I had done some lab work on the show, but I never worked on stage on that. It was all lab work. But John got to know Dick Silbert, who was a production designer, and Milena Canonero, who was a costume designer. So there were these people who we had gotten to know over the years, ended up with Warren. And Warren talked to a bunch of makeup artists. I'm sure he talked to Rick Baker. I'm sure he talked to Rob Bottin, all those guys who were used to like getting $1 million just for themselves right off the top. And I'm sure that, I think on a Warren Beatty picture, he is the number one diva, not you. You know what I mean? I think that I think John Landau recommended he talk to us. And we were out in Los Angeles and we went up to his house on Mulholland Drive. And he interviewed us wearing nothing but a towel, dripping wet from out of the shower. Yeah. Came down the stairs, water running off of him. It was this thing Beatty would do to kind of throw you off to see how you reacted,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like when we did get the job, which was impossible, there was no way we should have gotten that job. We were living up in the hills too, and he would call us at like 2 a.m. and say, "What are you doing? Can you come over?" And one night we went over. It was about 2 a.m, and it is a movie star estate, like E and The Incredibles. Remember her house, Mr. Incredible goes there, just like that.
Yeah.
And he says, "Come on in, go in the kitchen, make yourself at home." And we go in, and there's a girl sitting there in the shadows. It's Madonna. He just wanted to like throw us a curve. He had nothing to talk to us about. Nothing to talk to us about. He says, "I'm just going to have these guys come over and, throw them in a room with Madonna." But
I would have fainted, but
we weren't supposed to have gotten that job. Even Dick Smith was amazed when we got it. Warren liked us because we weren't full of ourselves, that's for sure. We weren't taking $1 million off the top just for us, and that I'm sure we came across as extremely hungry, and we came with recommendations from Dick Silbert, Milena Canonero, John Landau, and we got the job.
Nice.
And it was mind-boggling that we got the job. And Dick Smith said, "Well, you may have gotten the job and you may do the lab work, but you'll never lift a brush on stage." And the reason being is that there's an East Coast makeup union and a West Coast makeup union. And West Coast doesn't necessarily want people coming from the East Coast and doing jobs. They've got people out here already who need the work. Dick said the head of the union, his name was Howard Smith, who was known to be a real tough cookie. As a matter of fact, one night coming out of a union meeting, a makeup artist shot him. And he didn't die. The bullet died.
Wow.
No, he survived. And Dick said, Howard Smith, because when Dick came out to do some stunt masks for Man, Mad World, or was it a funny thing happened on the way to the forum? I can't remember. They made him take his makeup test. That's what it's like. He says, they'll never let you. Well, the thing was that the movie hadn't decided whether it's a union shoot or not yet. Warren was going, union or non-union? Union or non-union? Mm-hmm. And he used this as a bargaining chip, basically. And he told IATSE that we think we want to do it union, but I need these two guys. And the next day, Howard Smith drove out to our lab and handed us our applications like this. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And so it was really incredible. Yes, it changed my whole life. It was the peak of my makeup career. I mean, I went to Next Generation, which was awesome to be on stage and be standing next to Spock, Picard, and Data on the Romulan homeworld. Really? I spent a lot of time with and they were, I have to say, the funnest cast of all of them that I'd ever worked with. They were so freaking funny. And the later it got, the sillier they got. But when the director called action, they were right on the money.
Yeah.
And that's why they were allowed to play around, because they got the work done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got to have fun, but still got the work done for sure. Now, going into Trek, as we've been talking, you are part of a lot of many legendary creators like the Okudas and Dan Curry and Rick Stanbach and Herman Zimmerman and so many more. It is such a huge collaboration when creating this world. So how did you get from the words on a page, an additional idea, to what we see on screen?
Well, the way it works is, of course, we get a script. And if I'm in the graphics department, I'll talk it over with Mike. If I'm doing conceptual, I'll talk it over with Herman, and then I'll talk it over with Mike. And then Herman or whoever is in charge will go to a production meeting where they go through the script a page at a time. And everyone throws out their ideas of what we could do here. And it'll get batted around whether or not it's something that can be afforded, which is very important.
Yeah.
Once they get that out of the way, Herman will come back and we'll start doing, you never do one idea. If you go over with one idea, you're in trouble, because to them, you're like, oh, this is so precious. You think this is all you needed to do? So you always go over with like 4, 5, 6 ideas.
Right.
But you have to give them something to hate. If they could pick out something and go, I hate that. Well, this one's not too bad. If you just have one, it's like, I hate it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that would be this negotiation where they would look at, Herman would be there looking over his shoulder and go, I say do this and make this, so change this, stretch this way, and then he would take samples over to show Rick, or Brandon Braga, or Ron Moore, or whatever. And then he would come back with notes. And you may have to start from scratch. They may not like any of them. And if they don't like any of them, you have another meeting and you throw out some more ideas and see how they land with Herman or Mike. And then you do some more conceptual sketches of it. You try to get them as finished as you can. You're taking a big chance if you send anything only half finished, because producers can't see the rest of the way. Right. It's like if I brought a director a rubber head of an actor and it hadn't been painted yet, it's gray. They literally will say it's going to be flesh color, right? And you're like, yeah.
You're like, yeah, of course.
So it's kind of, oh yeah, I have a face right over here. This was one of David Bowie's makeups on The Hunger.
Oh, wow.
He ages to like 130 years old.
Yeah.
And it was Dick Smith did. It was my first job with Dick Smith.
Wow, that's incredible.
So it's like, then you have to send over as an illustration as close as you could, the best you could do in the time anyway. You have to be fast. And then it'll go over, and then they may pick one, or they may pick two and say, give me something between these two. And this is the way it works. I mean, it's not like you just get to do anything you want.
Yeah.
course, there's going to be a lot of you in everything that you do because, you're working every bit of it. But you're there to focus their vision of what it should be. And, sometimes you have situations where producers are very open to ideas. There are some that aren't open to ideas. They want to have the idea. I thought that Berman was pretty good. I thought that Ron Moore and David Icke on Battlestar Galactica were amazing. We could plan out whole sequences of, space battles and stuff with like almost no notes. Very few notes did we ever get. It was, that's what they even let us cut our own shots into the show.
Oh, nice.
Because we had an editor down the hall. If I did a shot for something or a couple of shots, I'd run them down to our editor and he would pop them in and I could watch and see how it plays. And if it doesn't play right, I could run down the hall and do another version of it and bring it back. And this is all in the same day,
Yeah.
That's, it's exciting. It's kind of a sport in a way,
Sounds like it. It's a sprint at times too.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of exciting because you'll do things when you're scared. You'll think up things when you're scared that you never would think up when you're calm. There's that desperation, the stank of desperation that brings out,
Now, was there a design though that you had loved that they didn't use that you were like, I wish they used this?
Yeah, I guess so. But I learned a long time ago that you're never married to any design. I mean, Mike and I. So when it doesn't get picked, you just go on to the next thing. That's the job. You knew the job was dangerous when you took it. If you're going to be a diva,
you're not going to go very far.
Divas don't do well unless they're super divas who are commanding lots of money and stuff like that.
Now, with your makeup creations, that you've done over the years, how different is it now compared to what it was like in the 90s?
Well, I
The
mean,
effects.
Prosthetic makeup hadn't changed that much. The technology got a little more refined. It was really about who the artist was. Then in the last 15 years or so, new materials started coming in, silicones that light could diffuse through. Because a regular makeup was paint, the light just hits it. So you'd have to paint in details to give the idea that it had depth, like jelly. They were coming out with new materials, which was really after me, but I've seen it, where if there was a light behind someone, you would see the red through the ears. You know what I mean? The light would hit it and diffuse out a little bit, and it's amazingly realistic. The thing is that computers and AI and CG have replaced so many. For instance, the last show I was on was season 2 of Ted, Seth MacFarlane thing. And there's a scene where Bill Clinton stops in a Dunkin' Donuts and gets into it with John's father. They tried prosthetics and they tried just typical CG where you tack a face on. And Seth said it was terrifying. It was like you didn't think about, you forgot the idea that it was Bill Clinton coming into the Dunkin' Donuts. It was more about the way his face was, wrinkling and stuff. Makeup is very, very tricky. And so they did AI. Seth played the character, and they used AI to put young Bill Clinton's face on him. And you just totally believe it's Bill Clinton.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
He says, yeah, I don't want to see anybody lose their job, but it's all about creating something that isn't distracting and actually works for the scene. Yeah. And the AI Bill Clinton worked amazingly. Absolutely amazingly. We've seen Bill Clintons and stuff on shows like Saturday Night Live, and they look vaguely like those characters, which is all it needs to be, But if you're doing a character that absolutely has to be Hal Holbrook as Mark Twain, or you have to be really careful. It's very difficult, very difficult. But I believe that unfortunately, makeup as we knew it is becoming a thing of the past. I mean, nobody does big monsters as, puppets anymore. I mean, no one wants to do that because it's too difficult to make it work.
Yeah.
It's tricky, really tricky.
Now, you, along with others, were called back to help with Star Trek Picard. And so, how was it to relive those moments and be with the old crew again?
Well, season 3 of Picard is Next Generation coming full circle.
Yeah.
And it isn't just in front of the camera, it's behind the camera too.
Yeah.
And the thing was that we had Terry Matalas as the showrunner, which is absolutely mind-boggling because he was practically a kid would hang out in the art department because we were all kind of the same. We were kind of geeky fans. He was too. And he knew the work and the thought that we put into the ships to make them real. A good Federation starship is not a science fiction design. It's an experiment in aircraft logic, and if you don't make it like that, it tends to come across as sci-fi. And Star Trek technology has always been something that attracted scientists, fans at JPL, fans at Kennedy Space Center. They like to see stuff where they can tell that someone actually read up on it, or I mean, when they did the original ship, they had people from the Rand Corporation that they were passing notes back and forth on. No, I had been talking to this guy on Facebook through Messenger, Dave, and he was a geeky fan like me. And you know how it is with when you run into people who are really, really crazy fans. You've got the shared experience, the shared childhood, and especially if the continuity holds together, which it doesn't so much anymore. You can have an amazing conversation and know you're all on the same page.
I think one of the things is that was amazing about why like season 3 particularly was so good is that because it was made by fans. Like you guys understood the assignment, right? So
Well, it was like I said, I had this guy Dave talking to me on Facebook Messenger, and he sent me a picture of himself wearing one of those, what they call the monster maroon suits from the movies. And I thought that was, great. And he says, by the way, I'm the new production designer on Picard. I'm like, the sound of a needle being dragged across vinyl. What? Would you say that again, please? He was the new production designer, and he's a big Star Trek geek. And he said, I've always wanted to work on Star Trek. He says, but what I really wanted was to work on Star Trek with you guys. And he had already talked to Mike and Denise, John Eves. We got Jeff Mandel in graphics. I have footage of when they were doing the D Bridge, we came up regularly to take a look at it and see if it still felt and tasted proper. I had a complete set of plans in the garage that I had saved way back then. When Enterprise ended, I took a set of those with me. One time we came over and Jonathan heard that we were on the set and he came running over. Liz Klakowski, the art director, said that he sprinted when he heard we were over there. It was like a part of our, we all knew it was special. And like I said, at that time, it was a unit where everybody was within a few blocks of each other. So everybody knew everybody. It was a very personal time to work on a TV show, very deep connections. Anyway, it was an incredible experience for all of us. We were all totally, I'll never forget this. I thought they were going to ask me to do graphics. And I was like, I didn't want to do ships because I love ships. But when you're doing a ship, they're really looking at it really close. And you're doing it again, and you're doing it again, and you're doing it again. And that gets to be tiring after a while. It's exhausting. And but graphics, yes, they might have notes, but 9 times out of 10, they're really happy with whatever we did, with LCARs and Cardassian interfaces and stuff. Never had any issues. So when Dave told me he wanted me to work with John Eves on ships, I almost had a heart attack. And the funny thing, and it's not funny actually, but this all happened around the time of COVID.
Yes.
So I had been on the Orville working on season 2 of the Orville, season 3 of the Orville, I guess. And when COVID hit, the show shut down. But its model was a lot like Star Trek, where everyone was on the 20th Century Fox lot. So they decided it was safer to shut everything down. And then when Dave called me, I'm like, well, what about COVID? He says, most of us are working remotely anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I stayed home. I'd work through the computer, and we'd have meetings through the computer. It was really different. It was interesting, in its own way, to work like that. But anyway, when he told me he wanted me to do ships, I literally had a heart attack. Now, here was the thing. We had like a month or so off already because of COVID from Orville before Dave asked me to come on. And in that time, I said, you know what? I want to learn to really model in the computer. I was okay, but I wanted to be able to model a car. A Starship is nothing compared to a car. When I decided to buckle down, I went out and I got, a model of a Lamborghini. And I said, I'm going to learn to model this, because I knew that if I could model this, a Starship was not going to be a problem. And at the time where I was getting really good, and I was actually doing models of cars, that's when Dave called me. And I had a panic attack the first morning. And I remember I was freaking out, and Dorothy comes in, and I'm like, she saved my life, I'm like, how am I can't. And she was like, look, you're Doug Drexler. I beeped it for you already. And that just was like a smack in the face. I was like, oh, you're right. I am Doug Drexler. And it turned out great. We had so much fun. And the thing that was really amazing about it was that Dave and Terry seemed more important to them that I was happy. Yeah, but what do you think? We want to know what you think. That was like a whole new experience,
Tables have turned.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. It's wonderful. And we had done, in the second season, we introduced the Stargazer, the new Stargazer. And I'll never forget, maybe it was Trek Core. It could have been Trek Core. The next day had an article saying that for the first time since the old era, there was this shot. It opens with a shot looking down on the ship as it's passing underneath and slowly turning. And fans went crazy because they were able to look at it. They saw that, oh my God, it's got transporter emitters. It's got phaser strings. It's got airlocks where they ought to be. It's got, reaction control thrusters. For the last, decades or so, that sometimes you had that and sometimes you didn't,
Yeah.
You have to have someone who really understands to even think that that's an important thing.
Well, to the fans, they are.
Well, I mean, look,
So,
if you were doing Masters of the Air with Tom Hanks, right, with the B-17 bombers, and you did like your idea of a B-17, people would laugh,
Yeah.
And that's the way fans are about their starships. So I just looked at that article and I said, just as if we planned it, is exactly what we did. The Bureau of Starfleet Technology doesn't exist anymore. There was me, there was Mike Okuda. For a long time, Rick Sternbach was there too, who really knew the tech and made sure everything you expected to be there, because it's a B-17 in reality, Of course, it really was, because Matt Jeffries was a flight engineer on a B-17 during World War II over Africa, so the sensibilities, the aircraft logic is all over the place,
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, you just had recently a Kickstarter to start your documentary, and which I happily donated because I'm a sucker for documentaries. And you've made your goal. So what inspired you to do this and tell your story?
Well, Jason Smith is going to be doing it. And, when he first suggested it to me, I'm like, are you sure? Who wants to watch this? But, when I gave him my memoir, which I am finishing up, and he's a really talented guy. And, maybe he'll make me interesting. I don't know. There's some funny stories, I have to say. There are some, and it goes all the way back. It covers Dick Tracy and stuff like that. And we had some adventures.
And that's why I'm such a sucker for those, because I love those behind the scenes stories, because what you guys do behind the scenes is what creates our our love for these shows. Like, as much as the actors are center stage, we love the characters and they do what's written on the page. They would not be able to do their job without the ship or without the Lacars or all
Well,
of it is one full. It's
Gino
just one
said
full
if you didn't
circle.
believe in the ship, you're not going to believe in anything.
Yeah.
Although I have to say that I have seen some shows that are, goofy, but I still fall for them sometimes. I mean, it's like Red Dwarf. You ever watch Red Dwarf? The British
No, I
movie?
haven't.
Oh my God! The first couple of seasons, they don't find their legs for the first few seasons, but by the third or fourth season, the show is brilliant. It's just genius. As a matter of fact, there was a character called Arnold Rimmer in it, a very pompous guy, and he had his own salute that would start from here and come up like this and come up and then, and Patrick Stewart was doing a special for the BBC about Red Dwarf because it's very big in England. And at the end of it, they want him to do the salute.
Patrick's probably like, what am I doing?
And I got a call in the art department one day from producer's office. Wendy Noose's office called and said, and the voice just out of nowhere says, "You're a Red Dwarf fan?" I'm like, "Yeah, how do you know that? Do you know how to do the river salute?" "Yeah, can you come over here right now?" And I had to go
Patrick
to Patrick Stewart standing there, and they explained to me I have to teach the captain how to do the river salute. And it was hilarious because he couldn't get loose enough, and I literally had to get behind him, put my arms around him from behind, and take his arm and go, "Let it go, let it go, let it go." And it was crazy. Here I am, I'm teaching. Go on the internet and type in, river salute, you'll see. But it was hilarious. I couldn't believe it. I have had some fun, I have to say.
That's so great. Now, I wanted to do some fun rapid fire questions that I'm calling crushing questions. Okay. Instead of burning questions, they're crushing questions. So it's 5 quick questions, and you just tell me, the first thing that comes to mind. Now,
Okay.
first one. Who did you look up to growing up?
Who did I look up to?
Yeah.
They were mostly writers and artists. I mean, I read a lot of science fiction, Heinlein, Asimov, Theodore Sturgeon, Edgar Rice Burroughs, Harlan Ellison, Ray Bradbury, Rod Serling. I read a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I had a head start because my mother taught me to read using a tape recorder.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I had a head start there. And I read all that, H.G. Wells, just tons of that, not to mention Stan Lee,
Of course. Question number 2. What music can you listen to all day?
Frank Sinatra.
Oh, brilliant. What is your favorite animal and why?
Here he is.
Oh, how old?
He's 43.
Ah,
The
beautiful.
whole time. And he's a brat.
Hello.
He runs my life. Brat. We've been through it all. Here. Get in there, Beaky.
Can you say hello? Hi.
He doesn't do much talking, thank God. There it is. There it is. Not like I have a choice anymore. If I knew.
Well, tell us one fun fact about yourself.
Star Trek made me.
Now, if you could tell your 18-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
You're going to be a complete failure. I would never tell myself that everything worked out. Because I'd stop working hard.
That's a good one.
tell them they're going to be a failure. They'll work twice as hard.
That's true. That's
I
true.
would
And you
encourage
learn
them.
from your failures,
I would, well, yeah, without failure, you wouldn't get anywhere.
Correct. Yeah, for sure.
Make failure
Now,
your routine.
are
Right?
you a failure too, buddy?
Any for your thoughts?
The first question is from Abby. Do you have any great behind the scenes stories from your time on Enterprise, particularly about your beloved wife, Dorothy, who did all the amazing food?
Thank you for mentioning Dorothy. 32 years of perfection, never an argument, ever. Not once, not ever. She came to work
Wow.
for Dick Tracy. And I almost threw that away because when we came out here, we had gotten her name from someone to come work and help run the lab. And we had her come down. We were at the Beverly Garland Hotel, and we invited her to come down. And I said, John, she's going to come down to the hotel. Do you want to meet her in a restaurant? And he goes, He says, we're in LA. He says, tell her to meet us by the pool. We'll take a meeting by the pool. And we thought that was hilarious. And so we're by the pool. Actually, Dorothy wrote this whole thing out herself from her point of view. And I just remember when she came in, and it was like, the summertime in California. And for Dorothy, it was like, it's hard enough keeping yourself together when you go for an interview for a job you really, really, really want. But when it's in the Southern California sun, keeping yourself together is you're going to melt, But when she came in the pool area, I'll just never forget it. I knew it was her instantly, just by the way she walked and, the power that she conveyed and stuff like that. And she was perfect. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. Her posture was perfect. Her whole outfit was great. And I remember saying to John, forget it. She belongs in a glass tower somewhere, not with us. Come on, dirty makeup lab. And John said, let's give her a shot. And that changed my life, Dorothy. But, she's a very rare person in that she loved to cook. She loved to cook. And she, it was like living in a 4-star hotel with her. I mean, she'd make me meals every day that were, not Stofers, I'll tell you that.
No PB&J sandwiches.
Oh man, I'm telling you, she was incredible, and she wanted to satisfy me. She was amazing. And Bink. See, the thing about Enterprise is that we weren't going to have turbo lift conversations anymore.
Right.
Turbo lifts are for plot exposition. Instead, they decided to do something they used to do on Bonanza, where they would have breakfast every morning and sit around a table and discuss what's going on. And Craig Binkley, Bink, who's adorable. He for the first time, maybe not the first time, but one of the few times on Star Trek where they needed a regular food stylist to create the food. It had to be good because people were actually going to eat it, and he was having the worst time. And he's telling me one day, and I'm watching this happen, that these people are not showing up on time. They don't get the concept of, flaming testicles, so I'm watching this happen, and I know that Dorothy can do this, but I'm going to wait till he is completely desperate. And I waited until he was really like losing his mind. And I said, Bink, have I got the girl for you? And I put them together, and they were just like Fred and Ethel, I mean, it was amazing. They loved each other. And that's what we loved Dorothy, because she had a sense of humor, and she could get in there and kick ass along with the guys. I mean, there's no guy who could, if she has to work in a pirate ship, which set can be sometimes, could be like a pirate ship. You have to have a tough ego. You can't be a, crybaby, and she was, I already knew that she had that nailed because she worked with us for so long,
Yeah.
So the cast loved it when they saw that she was on stage, because they loved her food. And especially, what's his name? Malcolm.
Oh, shoot. Malcolm. Dominic.
Dominic, yeah.
Yes.
he's from England, so fancy food is like so strange to him, and he like scarf it up. He would They would do scene after scene, and he would just like inhale the food. I even have a blooper where he just doesn't even do his line because he's so busy sucking up the food, and you could hear the vacuum of the food being sucked in. And Charlie Russo, who was the lead prop guy, finally says to Dorothy, "Okay, look, bring him a plate to his trailer before the set to try to slow him down," which is what they did. And they just, it was always, plus the other thing is anything left over would come to the art department and we would get it. When Dorothy came to stage, she always brought a box of brownies for Mike Westmore, who loved, she used the exclusive chocolate and stuff like that. And you'd see Mike walking around the back lot with the box under his arm. He wouldn't even leave it in his office. He'd walk around with a box of brownies. Right, Beak?
That's awesome. Now, Chris says, how do the details of design develop the story?
Well, I mean, you're world building, and you have to believe if you're showing an alien culture, you're trying to, for instance, the Bajorans tended to use oval shapes and whirlpool shapes, which was caused by the influence of the wormhole. It figures into all the designs. If you look at Deep Space Nine, the interfaces as opposed to LCARs are sharp and pointy and dangerous looking. It's like having a bunch of batleths that you're using for controls. That says something about them. I always had an idea in mind that they were sharp and scary, and some of the shapes even look like a roadkill of a horseshoe crab on a highway, next to the beach. You're by using certain shapes and things that people are familiar with, but you alter them in such a way that they don't see them anymore, but they're still getting the same psychological feeling by looking at them, a feeling of dread. The LCAR's graphics give a feeling that these people know what they're doing and they're organized. You believe in the ship behind them because the stuff Mike was doing. When I got to work as a makeup artist on the Enterprise D for 3 years, I explored those sets and looked at every square inch and behind panels. And I knew that this Okuda guy was cool, but it wasn't until I was there and can look at all these consoles and panels up close and see, wow, this guy is not doing science fiction. This isn't science fiction. He's like this to him. This is a study and a kind of interface for a mythical spaceship. That was based in reality because he always knew that. Well, for Gene, it was important that people believe in the ship from the original series. Even when they only had the ability to do sets and things that look theatrical, you still bought it because you went along with it because you could tell that whoever was behind it understood the way things are, doesn't have a lot of money, but still can put something together that makes you go, oh, yeah, okay. I mean, look at that freaking bridge. Still looks good as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't have any holograms or anything, but it's an awesome design. Do you want to go back now? Here, go back. Come on.
It's like, I'm done.
Oh,
But it's totally fine because you know what, Doug? That is the end of our conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. And please let the listeners know if there's anything you would like to plug or where they could find you.
I do have a Facebook page, but that's about it, really. I used to have a blog, but just Facebook. That's all. And then there's going to be the documentary. Hopefully, it's not going to be embarrassing. No, of course it's not. Jason is really, really good. And, he's done behind the scenes stuff for many shows for the CW and Warner Brothers and stuff like that. He's a pro. I look at it and I'm like, well, I got to admit, the memoir has some funny stories in it. Hopefully he can make the documentary. I told him it should be as much of a romp as possible.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Not too serious.
I'm excited. I'm super excited. I'm sure his name's Beak? Is that what
Beaky boy.
Beaky
His
Boy?
name,
I'm sure Beak is excited. Love it. Again, it's such an honor to be speaking with you today and meeting Beak and you telling your stories. I was super excited about this, and so thank you for a new fan. This is such an honor.
thank you for having me, and thanks everybody. Star Trek
Yes,
is an amazing community.
it
Uh,
is.
People who are a part of it have no idea what an amazing community it is. It's not
Yeah.
just goofy fans in costumes. You know,
I've learned so much. I feel like it's changed me into being a better person since I got into it. And I actually did suffer kind of a violent, tragic event a year after I got into Star Trek. And I feel like just being a part of it kind of helped me through that healing process and stuff. So it's
I
definitely changed me a lot.
when Dorothy passed, and that was really hard. But there were lines from Star Trek that got me through. There's this bit in The Cage, written by Roddenberry, where Pike, they change course to see if there's any survivors on Talos, and he goes back to his quarters, plops down on a couch, and Dr. Boyce
I
comes.
believe so.
Yeah, Dr. Boyce, will you come to my quarters, please? Yeah, Boyce comes in, and he's like, "What are you?" And he's mixing something. What are you putting in there? Ice? It's like, who wants a warm martini? There's that whole sequence there where Pike is talking about getting out, and that he can't deal with it anymore, deciding who lives, who dies, And the doctor says, a man either meets life head on and licks it, or he begins to wither away and die. And that line, man, really was with me all the way through dealing with Dorothy. My favorite episode of the original series is Metamorphosis, which used to be City, just like everybody else. But as I got old, watching Metamorphosis and seeing Cochrane, I'm going to get choked up, seeing Cochrane fall in love with the companion when he found it so disgusting at first. But there's a point where there's a little speech at the end where Spock says, "You'll continue to age now and die." And Cochrane says, Mr. Spock, I'm beginning to believe that's one of the pleasanter things about being human, as long as you do it together. It's like,
Yeah.
it's me, really chokes me up. Amazing episode. Really amazing
Yes,
episode.
for sure. I got into TOS and
Oh my
TNG
God,
and all that stuff. So,
too.
huh?
Kirk makes some unbelievable speeches while dealing with the companion.
Yeah.
Nobody should make fun of him. He always knows what he's doing. The guy's amazing. 95 years old.
I know.
Takes
Amazing.
doesn't kill him. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna let you go.
All right. No, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And thank you guys. Live long and prosper, everyone. Don't forget, you can listen to all the audio versions of Crusher Combo on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can support the podcast by buying merch on TeePublic, buy me a coffee by scanning that QR code, or becoming a Patreon member for as low as $3 a month. But the best way to support Crusher Combo is to like and subscribe here on YouTube. You can also find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, or TikTok, so please follow me there. And of course, all this information can be found on crushercombo.com.
Crusher out.